SAPS have released a report, a statement that reports on their investigation into the dramatic arrest of Advocate Malesela Teffo. He was arrested, you'll remember, on charges of contempt of court shortly after the Senzo Meyiwa trial adjourned last week. That was on Thursday. But the manner of his arrest has sparked an outcry. Teffo was originally arrested for assault but failed to appear in court several times. The police say they had no valid address for Teffo. Take a listen to this.
While the intention was to execute the warrant outside the courtroom, the manner in which the events unfolded made it challenging for the team. According to the investigating officer, as soon as the court adjourned, the investigating officer approached the advocate who was making his way towards the court door. It is important to highlight that after informing the advocate of the execution of the warrant of arrest and informing him of his rights, the advocate went back into the courtroom. The investigating officer then followed him back inside the courtroom in a bid to ensure that the latter complies with the contents of the warrant of arrest. Advocate Teffo did not cooperate with the investigating officer, which warranted the call for the assistance of the tactical response team members who were already posted in the same court for escort duties.
Advocate Nasreen Rajab Budlender, the Deputy Chairperson of the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa, PABASA, joins me now for more reaction on this story. So, Advocate, in your statement you say this manner of arrest of a legal practitioner is unprecedented in our constitutional dispensation, before going on to describe it as demeaning and unusual. But does that amount to irregular in the sense that there's something untoward about it in law, at least?
Yes, thanks very much. Tulasizo, I think there is actually something very irregular about what we've seen. And let me start by saying that our statement is very clear that this is not about Advocate Teffo. This is about the manner in which this arrest in particular was carried out. This is about the fact that South Africans witnessed a very high-handed, demeaning and humiliating arrest of a legal practitioner inside a courtroom. Advocate Teffo still had his robes on. This is really very unusual, and we must not forget that how unusual it is. So yes, in fact, it is very unusual, and the circumstances in which it happens really requires comment and requires us to remind everyone of what the rules are in relation to these arrests.
So, Advocate, are you saying to us that our focus should not be on whether the I's were dotted and T's crossed in as far as adherence to how to execute an arrest warrant is concerned, but we should be concerned with the spirit in which it was undertaken? Do you suspect that there's more behind the manner in which the arrest warrant, which, as far as I can tell, was a valid arrest warrant, in the manner in which it was undertaken?
No, that's not at all what I'm saying. Arrests must be carried out fully in compliance with the law. That goes without saying. My difficulty is that there was no reason to arrest Advocate Teffo inside the courtroom. If you look at the SAPS statement itself, it says very clearly that the instruction from the Director of Public Prosecutions to the investigating officer was specifically to arrest him outside of the court. And that Advocate Teffo apparently tried to leave, or was leaving or heading towards the door of the court when he was informed that he was going to be arrested, and he headed back into the courtroom. And so the SAPS followed him in there. From what I saw in the videos, he still had all of his things in front of him on the desks where he had just been representing the 4 accused in the case. So I wasn't in the courtroom. I, sure, like other South Africans, watched the video. But for me and for PABASA, the principle here is what's important. The principle is that our courtrooms have to have a particular sense of decorum and dignity. And that dignity is really about us saying we have a respect for the law, we have a respect for the justice that is being administered inside of our courtrooms. And I would imagine that that's why the Director of Public Prosecutions told this investigating officer to effect this arrest outside of the court. And that wasn't done. So whatever Advocate Teffo may or may not have done, I'm not aware of that, sure, and I don't want to comment on that. his arrest may be absolutely valid. It's really about the manner and the location of this arrest.
And I suppose there's a reason, Advocate Rajab Budlender, there's a reason why at the point at which he feared that he was about to be arrested as he was approaching the door, at least if we go by the version proffered by the SAPS, he then went back into court. I suppose that talks to that dignity of the court, that perhaps in his mind, and this is you and I maybe speculating, maybe in his mind he may have thought, there's no way, surely there's no way they're going to arrest me while I'm still inside court.
Well, I can't speculate about that. There may have been many reasons why you went back into the courtroom. The point is that really there are limited entrances and exits to a courtroom. Yeah. And it really it does not need that high-handed manner of arrest where we saw multiple SAPS and tactical response officers, sort of ushering him out of the courtroom. That, to my mind, it would be different if Advocate Teffo was about to stab someone in the courtroom. It would be different if there was an emergency situation. And then, of course, the police must arrest someone within the courtroom. That goes without saying. But in this situation, we didn't see anything like that. Really, he was there doing his job and he was going to leave that courtroom. He wasn't staging a sit-in. He wasn't refusing to leave the courtroom. It was none of those things appear to have been happening.
What would you say to a retort that says the person who's undermining the dignity and decorum of the court is an officer of the court who has against him an interdict from entering the premises, being South African Police Services Provincial Headquarters in Gauteng, an officer of the court who engages in an assault, alleged at this point, of course, until it is proven in court. What will you say to a retort that says, actually, that's where the dignity of the court is undermined more than it is by a person who becomes, a person who is subject to an arrest warrant being arrested inside a courtroom?
No, absolutely. We must be 100% clear that as much as we seek to hold the SAPS responsible for following the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, we do the same for legal practitioners. We are all responsible for following that law, and if Advocate Teffo is guilty of those charges, due process must be followed, and he must be allowed his day in court, and some sort of a finding to be made against him by the relevant judges. But that is irrelevant to how this happened. It doesn't matter whether Advocate Teffo is guilty of all of those things that he is charged with or accused of having done. What matters is that this arrest was carried out inside a courtroom in the full glare of our media and the public, and it seemed a very intentional thing to be done in that way.
Sure. All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights and inputs here on eNCA. Thank you for that. I advocate Nasreen Rajab Budlender, SC, weighing in on that arrest that you saw for yourself of Advocate Malesela Teffo.